A poltergeist is a type of supernatural entity or ghost that is typically associated with physical disturbances. They are also prone into other manifestations that are often considered mischievous or even malevolent. This supernatural phenomenon is heavily linked to antique items, ancient collections, or some things belong to the dead that is believed to be possessed. Therefore, be careful with antique items or ancient artifacts. You will never know until the day you will have to deal with the spirits living inside them. Richard is a grandson of a wealthy businessman. He was so close to his grandfather that his grandfather named him as the next owner of the mansion, a huge Hanoverian-era mansion with heavy influence of Baroque design, different than other modern houses and mansions nowadays. After his grandfather's death, Richard is asked to move into the mansion. Richard moved in and took his time to check on every rooms, from the alleyway, the corridor, the rooms to the kitchen. Everything looked eerie despite how tidy they were. Feeling heavy and distraught, Richard vowed to fulfill his promise to his late grandfather. No matter what happened, he will keep the mansion clean and tidy as generations before him did. Weeks passed without any problems at all. The maids continued to exercise their duty with utmost diligence, while at the same time keeping the eerie secrets to themselves. It was until one fateful night, Richard had a day off from his work. With a cup of tea, he decided to spend most of his time reading the old books. Much to his surprise, the air surrounding him suddenly became heavy. It sent chill to his spine, his sense tingling. Something is going wrong, and yet he could not describe it. Richard became restless. He swore he was feeling that something was watching him, but he did his best to calm himself, ignoring the restless feeling that was overwhelming him. All of the sudden, Richard heard a footstep from the door. It grew louder and louder, only to stop at the old grand piano that his grandfather loved to play back then. The piano's key lid moved by itself, opening up as if somebody was about to play the piano. Franz Liszt, Totentanz. Richard knew that song well. His late grandfather used to play it, accompanying the scary ghost stories of the East that he often got Richard hooked up into when Richard was still a little toddler. At that time, the teacup slipped off Richard's fingers. His face grew pale. He was speechless, but he could not move, nor run out of the living room. He only stayed there, sitting on the couch, while trembling in fear throughout the whole song that was played on the grand piano. Richard tried to open his lips and spoke. His voice didn't come out. His legs were too shaky that he could not stand straight no matter how many times he tried to get up. One of the maids suddenly sprung into the living room and pulled Richard up. Both of them then made their way out of the living room as fast as they could. It took several hours for Richard to calm down. He ended up sleeping in the house for the maids as they nursed him and calmed him down for the whole night. A week later, a priest from the nearby abbey was called to perform the rite of cleansing and exorcism. Neither was able to find the cause of such paranormal incidents, but Richard ended up putting some of the ancient items for auction, while donating others to the nearby National Museum. This includes the old grand piano as well. Enough is enough. May the tormented souls that inhabited those items rest in peace, in any places where they belong. Since that day, Richard's old mansion had finally known peace. Away from the disturbance of evil spirits and supernatural occurrences. A word of advice: do not acquire any antique or ancient items unless you know well of its origin and its usage. This includes some books as well. Before bringing those antique items into your house, be sure to bring them to the priest for the blessing and cleansing rite first. If you are a Muslim, you can just proceed with the cleansing rite by reciting Surah Al-Fatiha, Ayatul Kursi, as well as the 10 first verses and 10 last verses of Surah Al-Kahfi. It is better to be safe than to be sorry. Never play with the unseen world, for they are horribly unforgiving.